Welcome everyone. So today I'm going to be doing a preview video for the Tyhee Lake Triathlon. Awesome local race here just south of Smithers, BC in Telkwa. Beautiful area, awesome lake. And this webinar today is sponsored by Bike and Sport. Awesome spot in Smithers. If you need any advice, any new gear before the race, that is the spot to go. Or if you're just worried about your friend beating you in the race, probably a good spot to go and upgrade your bike before race day. But thanks to Pete and his team over at McBike for supporting this race. And let's run through a bunch of stuff today. So I do a bunch of these preview videos. I'll give myself an intro in a minute here, but today we're going to cover an introduction to myself, what to be doing in the final weeks to prep for your race, as well as the final days. We're going to talk about pacing, nutrition, gear, logistics for the race, and we'll also go through a course review of what you can expect on the day as well, so that you're prepared for the demands. It's a beautiful course, but an honest one as well. So we want to get you nice and prepared for race day so you can have the best experience possible. So myself, my name's Mark Cullen. I actually just moved to Smithers about a month ago and already loving it here. The people are amazing. The biking and the running and the swimming options are fantastic as well. But myself, I've been a full-time triathlon coach for about 5 years now. I have my own company called LP Endurance, where I help a number of triathletes, runners, elite CrossFitters, as well as high rocks athletes with their endurance. I've been competing for about 10 years in triathlon myself, been coaching for about 10, but been full time at it for about 5 years now. So pretty fun job to be able to make my every single day. And I just love helping people use these avenues to improve their fitness, their life, as well as just meet awesome people for the rest of their lives. So a couple pictures of myself racing, my wife Jess as well. Races too. She moved to the area here as well for work about 2 months ago. So we're loving it here so far and excited to hopefully join for the triathlon this year as well. But our race date this year is Sunday, July the 13th. So we're talking 2025 here. So let's talk about the final weeks of training. What should you be doing now, about 5 weeks out from the race, to make sure that you are ready come race day? So with the standard and sprint distances that are offered at this event, you're not going to need a huge taper for this event. So you can really be focusing on the next 4 weeks or so on some solid training specific to this race. So if you're doing something like the sprint distance, trying to build up to at least those race distances in your training across swim, bike, and run. That doesn't mean you need to be maxing out every time and racing those distances, but building up to being able to cover those distance maybe in a comfortable effort to start to get your body ready as well as your mind ready to the length of these races, because it does take both mental and physical sort of fortitude to be ready for these races. So you're starting to hit those race distances. Same with the standard distance. You can be covering the 1500-meter swim, the 40K bike, the 10K run, do it across a couple separate days and get used to what your body feels and maybe what pacing is going to be like for a race of that distance. And then I definitely recommend, I put here kind of the 60% of race distance rehearsal. So I like to do this usually 2 or 3 weeks out from a sprint or standard distance triathlon, where you'll do the example I put here was the standard distance, where you go and do at race pace kind of in a row like you would on race day, kind of 60% of that race distance. So for the standard distance, you might do 1,000-meter swim in the lake, grab a couple friends, go do that. And then maybe you do one lap of the course, 20 to 25K, and then maybe a nice 6K run off of it, all at race pace, to kind of get an idea of what's maybe possible on race day once you've tapered and you have that race environment. Gives you a little bit of idea, and maybe test out all of your gear and your race kit and things like that to make sure that you know on race day that it's automatic and you just know everything that works, from how am I carrying my hydration to how does my race suit fit to do I need to wear socks with my shoes and things like that. Come race day, it should be as predictable as possible, because there's always going to be little things on race day that you're going to run into. So control the controllables and leave that capacity for those little things that might crop up on race day. So some of those specific sessions, like I talked about, like this race rehearsal or getting a few intervals at race pace, are a good idea. in the final weeks there. Race fueling is an important one, so we'll talk about this in the upcoming slides. For pretty much anything that's over about an hour, 75 minutes, you do want to be thinking of fueling. So for most people, for sprint and standard distance, this is going to be an important factor to help you stay strong and be able to finish the race strong. So we'll talk about that coming up. Checking out your race gear. So if you have different wheels that you use or a different bike that you use for the race, or different kit than maybe your regular cycling or running kit, that you have a triathlon sort of suit that you wear for the day, making sure you test all this stuff so you can find if there's any little chafe spots that you need to lube up or little things like that. Practice all of that. A big thing to practice in the final weeks is your transitions. So we're talking transitions from swim to bike, which is your T1, or your bike to run, which is what we call T2, transition two. So just knowing how you're going to smoothly set up your transition area. So usually right beside your bike, you'll kind of have all of your bike stuff at the front, your run stuff at the back, maybe have a colorful little towel so you can find your transition area easy when you come out of the water all disoriented. So making sure that you practice these transitions as well as knowing what your flow is. So usually it's always in T1, helmet on first, and then maybe you're putting your bike shoes on, or if you're doing a more elaborate sort of mount where you already have your shoes on the bike, for example, you might be doing that. But do the simplest one on race day because you're going to have your heart rate all high from the swim, and then there's going to be other people around. So do the one that is the most simple and maybe not the one that looks the coolest. So keep things simple on race day, but it's a great one to practice a few times before you get to race day. So that transition one of getting on the bike, and then same thing getting off the bike. Are you just going to unclip and run in your bike shoes, or are you maybe going to slip your feet out of the shoes while you're biking and just step off, or do the flying mount kind of option? But again, keep the simplest one possible on race day because it's a high octane environment and you want to be able to make good sound decisions and not hurt yourself in something like a transition. One of the biggest things is clean bike is a fast bike, so make sure you do a nice hose down and get some soap out, clean your bike, clean your chain. So whether that's getting some degreaser, running it through a rag, washing it down, and then re-lubing it. That will go a long way to not having a squeaky bike on race day. And then just all the power you're putting through is pushing you forward, making sure all those bolts are tightened on your bike, your tires are pumped up and in good condition. That's where some of these race practices with all your race gear and everything is super important because you're going to find any of these issues in training and make sure when you get to race day that you are fully tuned up and ready to rock. And then when we talk about race week, so when we get into race week, we definitely want to shorten kind of the amount of training we're usually used to doing in our given week. And you're just doing a few kind of shorter workouts across each of the disciplines to keep the body sharp, but they're not going to be very long. So maybe leading up to the race, you're doing sort of two shorter swims, two shorter bikes, two shorter runs, spread out throughout your week leading in. And most of it's going to be kind of easy aerobic stuff. So if we talk about in terms of perceived exertion, a lot of your time is going to be a 5 and below effort. And you might throw a couple small race pace sort of intervals in there. So if you're doing the standard distance, maybe on the Wednesday or Thursday, you're doing like 4 by 5 minute at kind of that race effort. But you still want to keep a little bit of that race intensity to keep the sharpness. But remember, in the final week, there's no more fitness to be gained. It's better to probably be doing less than trying to do more and force fitness in there. The fitness is going to be what it is. You just don't want to carry extra fatigue into race day. So, few workouts, keep the body humming going into race day, but keep it pretty chill, and a few activation intervals. And when in doubt, just be cautious and take an extra day, get the sleep in. Your body will thank you come race day. We definitely want to keep up with some mobility and activation. So that could just be going through some key movements to make sure those key endurance muscles are firing. So maybe some planks, and then maybe some things to keep the glutes, hamstrings, quads, calves activated. Just some light stuff. You probably don't want to be doing full strength training a week of, but just making sure maybe after some of these workouts, you're doing 10 to 15 minutes of some mobility and activation work, like some glute bridges and things like that, just to make sure body is fully tuned and ready for performance come race day. And then nutrition loading, we'll talk a little bit about that, but just making sure in kind of your 1 to 2 days leading into the race that you're starting to shift a little bit more of your diet towards being a little bit more carbohydrate heavy. You'll back off on the fats and fiber a little bit. And you don't, for races of this distance, you're not going to need a massive carbohydrate load for these, but can help you on race day to kind of have that high octane engine going of just upping your carbohydrate a little bit in the 1 to 2 days leading in. Making sure you're getting good sleeps the 2 to 3 days before, day before the race. Often we don't sleep that well. We're excited, thinking, kind of running through the race. So if you can bank some of that sleep the days before, takes a little less stress off the night before when you might not get that good of a sleep. And then also in those final 2 days around nutrition load and just making sure you're staying well hydrated, but also not just chugging water, making sure you're maybe adding a little bit of sodium to that water each time you're drinking it so you're not flushing the system of all those good electrolytes that you need on race day. So I just like to have, I use these little effervescent sort of sodium tabs that I'll just add like a couple 100 milligrams to my water throughout the day. And again, it's just making sure the body's going to be primed come race day. And then just making sure you're checking the forecast. We know it can change quickly in an area that has mountains around. So just checking the forecast 1 to 2 days out and making sure you're bringing stuff on race day to be prepared. So if it's going to be maybe a super chilly one, that you have maybe some arm sleeves or a light jacket to be able to put on. But usually in the middle of summer here, we get pretty decent weather for a race like this. But anything can happen. So please come prepared with lots of different options in your bag. This is just a good gear checklist you can kind of run through now to see if you're maybe missing anything already. And you can pop into Mick Bike and Sport. And if you don't, maybe if they don't carry something, you have some time to source it somewhere online or from a friend out of town. But just good thing to check through that you have all of these sort of things. You can search triathlon gear checklist online, and there's a great one from Training Peaks that is on there. Good to start to think about these things now so you're not scrambling race week and you can just be relaxing and activating and getting ready for the race. So just a good checklist here to remind you of some things. So let's talk about the final 1 to 2 days. So already mentioned it, but upping our carbs, adding electrolytes to the water, limiting fats and fiber. Final kind of walkthrough of all your gear to make sure everything is working there. So that final bike clean, tire pumps, checking all the bolts to make sure our bars aren't going to be falling off or twisting or anything like that. If you're using, for example, in your shoes, lock laces that allow you to just kind of slip your shoes on quickly, that those are all set up, making sure your wetsuit and goggles are in good form and aren't going to fog up on you or break, making sure all your nutrition's ready to go, and then just charging the batteries. So if you say use a bike computer or a watch or a heart rate monitor, just making sure those things are all charged up for the race day. And then training, we talked about that, short shakeout workouts in kind of those final couple days leading in. Logistics, make sure you know the full schedule. We'll review a little bit of that coming up, but making sure you leave enough time to get to the race site with lots of time to do any last minute problem solving if you forgot something or need to get your tires pumped up and things like that. That you know what time you need to be checking in either the day before or morning of, as well as what time you need to be there for race day. Things move quickly race morning, so better to build yourself extra time and be waiting around a little longer than scrambling last second. One thing I recommend when you get to the transition site in once you've racked your bike in your spot is just to walk the transition area. So walk down to see where you're going to be coming in from the swim, where you're going to head out and in on the bike, as well as where you're going to head out on the run. So when you're a little disoriented coming into these transitions, that it can become automatic and you just know where you need to be heading. When you're heading out there. So mentally rehearse those and just know that when you get there, it will be automatic. And then just running through your final race plan in the days leading in. So what are you going to use for a nice simple nutrition and fueling plan? And then what's your race plan from how are you going to tackle the course? And we'll talk a little bit about that coming up. Race morning, usually I like to eat a carb-rich meal 2 to 3 hours before. So one of my go-tos is like two pieces of toast with a banana and a little bit of peanut butter on there. And then I'll be sipping on maybe an electrolyte drink that has 500 to 1,000 milligrams in my water there. And then I'll just kind of I'll stop after that 2 or 3 hours, leave a little bit, and then maybe I'll take like a small little bar or a gel or something like that about 25 minutes before the race. But what this does 2 to 3 hours before allows you time to kind of get those washroom breaks in before the race starts, and then you're just staying topped off with maybe an electrolyte or a sports drink kind of leading up to the race. If you use caffeine, it's a fantastic performance enhancing substance. For myself, I'm usually a one coffee a day sort of person, but before a race like this, I might have like two coffees or a coffee and maybe a 100 milligram caffeine pill. It is probably the best legal performance enhancing drug out there, but make sure you trial it in training so you know what sort of limits you can take on for one like this. Lay out all that gear the day before, so race morning you're just throwing it all in the bag and not forgetting anything as you're getting there. And then, yep, arrive nice and early, use the washroom, get to the swim start with time to spare. Even hop in the water for a little bit for a quick, short warm up swim if you can. Just make sure that your wetsuit's all good, your body adjusts to the temperature, and then also gets the heart rate up a little bit. So then when you start the race, you're not just shocking the body, it's a little bit more primed for the race as you're going to start. So when we talk about the weekend schedule here, just remember you are required to check in and have your bike assessed before 8:30 on race morning, which is Sunday, July 13th. So two ways to do this. Either pop by Nature's Pantry on the Saturday noon to 4 o'clock, and you can check in and get your bike checked out there. Or you have time race morning between 8 and 8:30 at the park to get it checked out there. But make sure you have your tires inflated before you get your bike checked. So you'll not be able to race if you haven't had these checked in and verified. So that includes cyclists for relay teams as well. So when we talk about race day schedule, 9:30 a.m., both the standard distance and triathlon and duathlon go off. So just a reminder on our distances, standard triathlon is going to be 1,500-meter swim, 40K bike, 10K run. Standard distance duathlon, meaning just bike and run. So you start with a 5K run, do a 30K bike, and then a 5K run to finish. At 10:30 a.m., the sprint triathlon is going to go off. That's a 750 swim, 20K bike, and 5K run. So that is your schedule for the weekend. So let's talk a little bit about during the race. So how should you be pacing the swim? You don't want to go to max right away and then just be falling off for the entire day or have your heart rate pinned and then you're walking it in on the run. So still strong effort, but kind of long and strong in control. Let the wetsuit do the work, or just if you're not using a wetsuit, stay nice and in control during the swim. Making sure that you're sighting every typically 6 to 10 strokes. Try and do it where you're just lifting your eyes a little bit above the water, looking up at the buoys and the swimmers in front of you so you're not swimming extra distance by going off course. So with my athletes, I recommend doing it every 6 to 10 strokes. Like we mentioned before, try and get in before and do a little warm up. Seed yourself correctly. So if the wave is all going off together and you're a fast swimmer, making sure you're near the front. If you're a slower swimmer and want to stay a bit out of the mess, maybe you stay 1 or 2 rows back just to stay out of the mess and not cause yourself any aggravation getting swam over by a faster swimmer. Typically, the temperatures for the swim are around 19 to 21 degrees. There has been years where it's super cold, under 16 or under, where a wetsuit is mandatory, or above 22, where wetsuits are not permitted or you'll overheat in there. So you could just swim in a swimsuit or your tri-suit for one like that. So, but typically it's in the 19 to 21 degree, which is a really nice, comfy wetsuit sort of temperature. So that's mostly the swim. You do have a long, we'll talk about the courses coming up in the next bit, but you will have a decently long run to transition when you get out of the water. So just remember for that as well. When we talk about the bike, so in terms of the first parts I have there are sort of effort. So if you're doing the standard, maybe you're aiming for more like a 7 to 8 out of 10 strong effort, but not where you're breathing out of control and that your legs are lighting up. You do have to bike either 30 to 40K, depending if you're doing the duathlon or the triathlon. If you do use something like a power meter, you could be targeting something in that 85 to 95% of FTP. Faster riders can target the higher end of this. Maybe a slightly weaker rider might be targeting the lower end of this. Sprint, it's a shorter race. So you can go a little bit harder. So maybe you're starting more of an 8 sort of out of 10 where your breathing's getting a little bit deeper there. You're feeling a little sizzle in the muscles. But again, you're not going to max effort because you do need to run off of this. So leave some gas in the tank. Worst case, if you under bike a bit, then you can still crush it on the run. But the opposite isn't usually quite as fun where you're falling apart or having to walk on the run. We do want to do a bit of fueling for this. So for something like a sprint distance where most people are going probably about an hour up to about 2 hours for some people, you do probably want to be getting some carbs in on the bike. So for most people, if you're doing the sprint, maybe you're aiming for something around 40 to 50 grams for the sort of sprint bike section. And then if you're doing the Olympic, which is going to be closer to hour 30 for a lot of people, you might put something like 70 up to like 100 grams total of carbs. So plan that out. You could do drink mix, gels, any of your favorite candy, anything like that that gets the carbs in, but usually you want to use easily digestible stuff. Usually we recommend something on the bike around 750 mils per hour of fluids. So if you're biking for an hour 30, making sure you have like probably 2 bottles on the bike. If you're biking closer to an hour, you might only need 1 bottle. Adding some sodium there as well. They're from fluids needed and sodium are very individual. So if you go on the Precision Fuel and Hydration website, there's a great calculator there where it asks you things about how much do you usually sweat? Is your kit salty after? How long is your race? What kind of conditions is it in? And it can give you a custom fueling, hydration, and sodium plan. So highly recommend doing that if you are curious. It's free on their website, Precision Fuel and Hydration. So check that out. And then let's talk about the run now. So when we get to the run, if you have done any recent races, for example, usually the standard distance, so we're running 10K off of the bike for that. Usually you'd be targeting what you would do in a open half marathon. So as if you had not done a swim and bike before, you could target somewhere around that pace. Obviously, this we'll talk about the courses. It is a challenging course, so maybe you're going to end up a little bit slower than that, but you can sort of target more that effort. So around a 7 to 8 out of 10. And then the sprint, again, it's a hard effort. So usually more like your open 10K pace, but it's going to be a hard one. 9 out of 10, probably approaching 10 out of 10 at the end of both of these, but you want to be smart in the first half of both of these. On the run, I always recommend just getting water at every aid station, especially in a summer race. You could also carry your own bottle if you wanted to. And then for something like a sprint, if you fueled well on the bike, you might not need anything on the run because you would have carved up in the morning the day before and got some carbs on the bike, and then you're only running 5K off of it. So should be okay there. For something like an standard distance, I would definitely recommend getting at least 30 to 50 grams of carbs on board for this. If you're a faster runner, maybe running closer to 40 minutes, you could probably get away with 25, 30 grams. So that would be like a single gel. But if you're running closer to maybe an hour, then you might want to be getting in closer to 50 grams just to make sure you keep that energy up all the way to the end. So that's a bit around the pacing and nutrition side of things. So let's jump into the actual courses here. So this is the standard distance triathlon. So how this one is going to work is when we look at our swim loop over here, it is a 750-meter loop that you're going to do clockwise, and you are going to do 2 loops of that to complete your 1,500-meter swim. So don't leave after one loop. Make sure you get both loops in for that. And then once you get out of the water, you'll run about 100 meters to transition kind of up a sort of hill and then into the transition area. Remember when you start this bike, this area getting out of the transition area is about an 800-meter, 1 kilometer straight uphill. So It's very easy to go way too hard and pin your heart rate and go to max right away after that. The only thing I can say is try and keep in control, try and keep it to a 7 or 8 out of 10 sort of effort. There's plenty of real estate ahead of you to go fast across the rest of the bike as well as the run as well. So just be smart on that. When we're talking about the bike, it is going to be two loops of about 20 kilometers. So you're going to come up this big hill here to the cemetery. You're going to go out Telkwa High Road, make a right. Watch on the right here. There is a few little bumps here, and it's a short right turn where you're kind of coming down a downhill. So just be smart as you turn on Tyhee Lake Road here. The roads are pretty much quite nice quality. There's just a few spots where they've filled in some cracks in the road, but overall, like you're not going to be hitting many potholes or anything here. Always stay focused because there's not a whole lot of area on the side of the road before it runs off onto gravel. So just stay aware because the course is flowy and windy. So you always want to be looking a little ways ahead of you, knowing what's coming so you can be ahead of the game on that. So you're going to go on your first loop all the way out to the end of Tyhee Lake Road here. Turn around, watch out for the signs at the turnaround. It can be a bit of a tight turnaround, so just be aware. There's lots of signs out there, but awareness, if you're nailing your fueling as well as your pacing, you should be nice and aware. So make sure that you are keeping an eye out when to slow down for some of these turnarounds. You'll come all the way back. The nice thing is on your second loop, you don't have to go all the way down the hill to the transition. You'll turn around kind of at the cemetery here and then go out for your second loop. On your way back, you'll make that final left and then go down into the transition area to complete your 40K. There's not much flat on this course, as you can see on the profile here. So we have that screaming uphill and downhill to start and finish. And then it's just kind of a bunch of rollers up and down, couple short, steep ones, but for the most part, you can hold good momentum. In terms of pacing, I definitely recommend not hammering the hills, but trying to smooth out your power curve a little bit. So you'll definitely go up a little bit in terms of effort on the hills. But really, you want to go up a little bit of effort on the hill, but leave enough gas that you can get over the top and keep power on the downhills until you run out of gears. What this is going to allow you to do is keep a little bit more of an even profile, and that's going to help you a bunch when you get to the run. Versus if you spike your power a million times going max effort on every hill and coasting downhill, you're probably going to bike about the same time, but you will have torched your legs for the run. So be smooth with that power, a little bit more on the uphill, keep power on the downhills, steady on the flats, and that's going to go a long way to allowing you to run to your full potential. So once you get off the bike here, you're going to go down and into the transition area, and then we have a single loop run course that's going to go an out and back, where we go out past the cemetery, out where you went on the bike course, but going to keep going out Telkwa High Road, almost to Babine Lake Road. And similar to the bike, you're going to have that about 800-meter stretch to start all the way uphill. So no, again, don't go to max there or you're never going to get your heart rate back down. So try and keep it in check on the run there up to the top of the hill. Then start to find your rhythm along this kind of flat part from about 1 to 3K. Use that kind of 2 to 3K downhill as a bit of a recovery to open up the legs. You're going to get more climbing out to the turnaround at 5K. So you're going to have to push a little bit harder for that, but you get some recovery and lots of downhill coming back the other way. So leave a bit of gas so you can still be able to push fast on these downhills because you could have some scorching fast Ks if you leave it all out there and leave a little bit of gas for the final 4K if you want to call it. So be smart in the first bit, strong effort, but still leave a little bit in the tank for the end of this. So you can see a nice out and back here. The roads are super nice on this part, but again, there's not a lot of flat. Lots of rolling sections on these to recover fast on the downhills, push a little bit more on the uphills, but it's okay to bleed a little pace on the uphills so that you're not going to max and then having to walk on the flats or downhills or the next uphill. So that's a little bit of the standard course there. So when we get to the sprint, very similar setup here. The sprint is just one loop of the bike course. So you're going to come out of transition, go all the way down to the end of Tyhee Lake Road and come back. Very similar setup to the standard in that it's got that big climb, lots of rollers to sort of carry momentum, push a little bit on the uphill, recover a bit on the downhills, but keep that power curve pretty steady if you can. And then similar on the run, just the turnaround is obviously earlier, but you're going to climb that first 1 kilometer out, and then it's a little more flat, kind of rolling to the turnaround. A little bit of a climb out of the turnaround, which is at the float plane base there. And then you have that final 800 meters in both the races where you just get to rip all the way down to the finish line. So super fun finish to get a nice fast kilometer to finish. I missed the swim there, but the swim similar course to the standard distance. It's just one single loop of the swim course. So when we talk about the duathlon, so the standard distance duathlon, so I think you got a good semblance of what the bike course hills are like on this one. No swimming for this one. Remember, it starts with that 5K run. So I'm just going to cover that first because it starts and ends with the 5K run. So you get to luckily tackle that big hill up to the cemetery on both the first and the second run. We're pretty familiar with this at this point, but about a 1K climb, rolling in the middle, bomb back down to the transition area. The same thing for the second run. Some notes on the bike here. So we remember we got this climb out. So your first loop on the standard duathlon, because it's 30K in between the sprint and standard triathlon distances. So you're going to go out, and on your first loop, you're going to go all the way out to the end of Tyhee Lake Road with this red at the bottom here. Turn around, come back to the cemetery where the turnaround was for the standard triathlon. So you're going to turn around there at the cemetery, go back out for your second loop, but then you see this red dot at the top here at Fisher Road. That's going to be about 5K in to your second loop. You're going to turn around there and then come all the way back to transition. So you got a 20K loop to start, back to the cemetery, over to Fisher Loop on your second loop, and then come back and down to transition to finish off your 30K bike leg before you get on that final 5K run. But honestly, this is such a fun course. Lots of rollers, lots of variety on this. Awesome barbecue after as well. Great people. So definitely a great cost-effective event. Good luck to everyone out there. Remember, pop by Mick Bike and Sport if you are looking for any last-minute gear to fill things in or just some advice on the race. I know Peter and his team are well versed on this race as well. But hopefully, I'll see you all out there in training and on the roads. I'm a frequent at Tuesday Run Club, so maybe I'll see some of you out there. But if you want to connect with me, you can also send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Mark Cullen on there. Or mark at lpfit.ca. Always happy to answer any questions along the way. Best of luck to everyone with your training, and we will see you all out there on race day. Cheers.